Habit.
That was a wonderful talk.
1 second.
I'm sorry.
Repetition. Habit. Training. The whole Buddhist path is about training. We trained ourselves to lose sight of our own experience and to mistake its nature, to have wrong beliefs. We believe that things don't exist when they sort of do, and we believe that things do exist when they sort of don't. Our perspective is all warped. How do we change that? We use the basic technique over and over and over until we effect some kind of reorientation. So there is no shortcut, there is no other secret method. It's just to remember and repeat, and to remember and repeat. Because your mind's nature simply is to know itself, there is nothing at any moment, day or night, that prevents you from meditating. Now, you might want to throw things at me for saying that, because it seems ridiculous to some of you, maybe. There is fundamentally nothing that prevents you from meditating at any moment in which you have experience. Let's leave aside deep sleep, that's for another day. But if you're dreaming, if you're daydreaming, if you're working, cooking, going to the bathroom, whatever you're doing, there is nothing imposed upon your mind like some kind of, tool, like a wrench, that's pulling your awareness and preventing it from manifesting its own nature as knowing itself. There is fundamentally no obstacle to meditating in every moment other than the bad habit of forgetting to do it. That's what you work with. Okay, next.
I'd be curious, when you yourself become frazzled, so if on the spot you become frazzled, I'd be curious about what kind of, what your thought processes would be at the time to become unfrazzled.
The first thing to do is to notice that you are frazzled, rather than think that something else is causing you to be frazzled and thinking about that thing. Bringing it back to your own experience. So if you work and your idiot boss yells at you, then if you're frazzled and you're busy thinking about what kind of person that boss is, then you remain frazzled. If you take the moment to pause and recognize, oh, I am frazzled, forget about what the boss did or didn't do or said or didn't say, and what kind of history, what kind of story I tell myself about that and what it means and what he must think of me, etc., etc. Dropping that whole narrative, just look at the fact, the experience of being frazzled. That is the starting point to breaking the habit, to changing your response to that situation. Of course, it's only the first step. Then you apply whatever meditation technique you have learned to work with that awareness of that experience of frazzledness happening in you. And if it's a very, very strong habit, a very powerful reaction pattern, you might have to chip away at it very slowly and patiently, like a great sculptor working with a block of granite, right? And if it's weaker, then it will go away or loosen its power more quickly and more easily. But that's the basic task, and that's always the task. Okay? All right.
Is there any explanation as to why our minds that are so aware take on these habits? Why we become confused? Is there some?
That is the question of questions. You can read thousands of years of Buddhist metaphysical treatises about the original fall from grace, you can say, which is how does awareness, whose nature is simply to know itself, forget? How does it forget itself and why? And there's all kinds of fancy answers that happen, but none of them are going to help us at all. All that's going to help us is to remember to remember. But, they say things like, mind, because it has this, not only this nature of awareness, but this, at the same time, this expressive capacity, the capacity or energy to manifest to itself in any variety of forms or as any type of experience. Somehow mind can shift its focus, as I was saying earlier, and mistakenly grasp onto those displayed experiences or phenomena as happening outside itself, rather than being its own display or its own expression or its own radiance. So instead of seeing that anger is coming from our own minds, we are looking out into some imagined world beyond our minds for that thing that imposed that anger on us, that made it happen. The you made me angry or it made me angry. So it's a matter of orientation. And then it's a matter of reorientation in the training. But knowing where we screwed up in the first place doesn't change the remedy that we have to apply in order to remember that nature as it actually is.
What are some techniques, if you please, that you could offer us to help us to remember on a moment-by-moment basis in our ordinary lives out there to stay in awareness? What are some of the things that you have found most helpful?
What do you find helpful in your life when you have to remember something and you don't want to forget?
I hold it in my awareness. I don't know the answer to that, actually.
Do you write something on the fridge, or do you keep a calendar, or do you ask someone, will you remind me, or will you call me at 7 o'clock and make sure I'm awake so I don't miss that thing? Do you do any of those kinds of things?
I do have a calendar.
Oh. I mean, I'm giving you some examples of what people tend to do. The point of all of those little tricks is to try to get themselves at some future moment in time to remember something that they need to do. So take all those little tricks and use them right now. Whatever works for you. There's no secret method that I use that I can guarantee will work for you. Maybe remembering your mother's face always reminds you to be present. Maybe remembering some beautiful, calming piece of music lets you let go of some other emotion that is upsetting your mind. As endlessly creative as our minds are at imagining all these different things, there are at the same time endless creative methods we can devise as suits our own life experience to help us remember, to help us remember to simply be aware of our experience in the moment as experience in the moment, happening in and to our minds, rather than simply imposed upon us from the world. So experiment and see what works for you, because if I've never met you before, as far as I recall. If I just tell you, try this, and then you go home tomorrow and you try it and it doesn't work right away, and you'll say, oh, that guy. And then you don't know me, I don't know you, you can't call me up and complain, and I can't tell you why you didn't use the method properly. And sorry, I'm not giving you easy answers.